How could we have not heard about that? What about the guys with the brushes? How could you uncover something like that?
The story is just beginning. What do you think? Could this be the evidence that finally changes everything we believe about our place in the universe?
On March 2nd, 2025, something ridiculously strange streaked across the skies above Buga, a quiet town in Colombia's Valle del Cauca region. According to witnesses, the glowing metallic sphere was silent, gliding low, and unnervingly precise in its movement. Then it suddenly dropped into a nearby field. When locals approached, they found a smooth, cold orb about the size of a soccer ball. It had no seams, no screws, and no visible damage, as though it had been forged from a single perfect piece of metal. But where did it come from? What was inside it? And does this confirm Bob Lazar's theories from the 1980s? Let's find out. Who is Bob Lazar? To understand why the Buga sphere caused such a stir, we have to go back to 1989, when a man named Bob Lazar walked into a Las Vegas TV station and quietly dropped a bombshell that would shake the entire world on live television. He told investigative journalist George Knapp that he'd worked as a physicist at a secret site known only as S4, a facility buried in the Nevada desert near the perimeter of the infamous Area 51. His assignment, he claimed, was to study 9 extraterrestrial craft the US government had hidden there, and also to figure out how they worked. It was there he came across one particular craft which he described in haunting detail. According to him, it was seamless, metallic, and perfectly curved, with no signs of bolts, wires, or propulsion systems. Inside, he said, was a reactor the size of a basketball, capable of bending space-time using a mysterious element unknown to science. He called it Element 115. His story was new and unlike any conspiracy theories anyone had ever heard. So, as soon as it hit American television, it was like an earthquake. For years, the clamor to know exactly what happens in Area 51 had been brewing. And for the first time, someone claiming insider knowledge was describing alien technology not as glowing fantasy, but as a system with real mechanics and measurable energy outputs. It was fascinating. But the deeper journalists dug, the more questions appeared. First, Bob said he'd studied physics at MIT and Caltech, yet somehow both universities had no record of him. Next, the Los Alamos National Laboratory, where he said he'd worked, also denied his employment. The only proof we had that Bob, as a physicist, as he claimed, was in a 1982 Los Alamos newspaper that listed him as a physicist working there. Some ufologists speculate he was a subcontracted technician, not a physicist, a small but crucial difference when your story hinges on analyzing alien propulsion. So, did this mean Bob was lying? To critics, yes. This was the perfect proof they needed to label him a liar. But to believers, this was the evidence of a cover-up in plain sight. How so? Well, the logic was that a higher power had ordered all of his school and work records to be scrubbed clean. This way, when he claimed affiliation with any of those places, his records would come back blank. It probably didn't also help his case that he also has several criminal convictions, including a 1990 conviction for his involvement in a prostitution ring, and another in 2006 for selling illegal chemicals. But whatever the truth was, it never really bothered Bob. Even decades later, he still never changed his story. He insists he handled alien technology, smooth metallic crafts powered by something beyond our physics. And now, with the 2025 Buga sphere rolling onto the headlines, many can't help but refer back to Bob's mysterious revelations. Because when videos of that flawless metal orb surfaced, people didn't just see a strange object. They saw Bob's reactor, reborn in real life, Element 115. Bob isn't particularly liked by ufologists. Think of him as a paradox. He's the man who gave Area 51 its mythic aura, yet the same man many ufologists hesitate to endorse. To believers, he's a brave whistleblower who risked his life to expose alien technology. To others, he's a storyteller who wrapped half-truths in scientific jargon and changed the direction of UFO research forever, not necessarily for the better. The first crack in his credibility came from his background. The next came from his lack of evidence and credibility. After spending such a long time describing 9 alien craft stored at a secret facility called S4, hidden near Area 51, you'd think he'd at the very least have a photograph, a schematic, a sample of element 115, or even a single document proving S4 exists. But he doesn't. With his testimony relying entirely on memory, the absence of proof frustrated serious UFO researchers who were trying to bring the topic into legitimate scientific inquiry. Even Bob's scientific explanations raised suspicion. His talk of gravity amplifiers and element 115 sounded impressive, but physicists pointed out his descriptions didn't align with any known principles of particle physics or propulsion. But what is this element 115? And why was Bob so obsessed with it? When Bob first came forward, what set him apart wasn't the UFOs themselves, but the science behind them. He claimed the crafts didn't use conventional propulsion. There were no engines, exhaust, or visible power source. Instead, they were fueled by something called element 115, a metal so rare it didn't even appear on the periodic table. Bob said each craft housed a reactor containing a small triangular piece of this element. When bombarded with protons, the element supposedly produced a powerful gravitational field, one that could amplify gravity and even bend space-time. According to him, that's how the UFOs could dart across the sky or disappear instantly. They weren't flying, they were falling forward through a distortion in gravity. To skeptics, it sounded like Hollywood physics, but Bob's technical explanations were surprisingly coherent. He spoke about gravitational A waves and B waves, antimatter reactions, and energy conversion processes that mirrored theoretical physics concepts decades ahead of their time. In 1989, however, there was no element 115. It was purely hypothetical. But in 2003, researchers at the Joint Institute for Nuclear Research in Dubna, Russia, finally synthesized it. They named it Moscovium MC. For a moment, it looked like Bob's wildest claim had been confirmed. However, unlike Bob theorized, Moscovium was highly unstable, decaying in less than a second. No stable isotope has ever been found. And to mainstream scientists, this meant Bob's reactor could never exist. But to believers, it meant something else. Maybe Bob's version wasn't artificial, but an extraterrestrial, stable variant we simply can't reproduce on Earth. That idea of science brushing up against something just out of reach is what's kept Bob's story alive. Because to some, he wasn't just telling tales. He was describing a physics we might not understand yet. And so, when a strange, perfect metal sphere landed in Colombia decades later, the parallels were impossible to ignore. Could it be the same technology Bob tried to warn us about? The Buga sphere discovery in early March 2025, residents of Buga, Colombia, watched a small metallic sphere glide silently across the sky before it disappeared beyond the hills. Locals first spotted it after a fiery streak tore across the sky, crashing into a patch of farmland just outside the city. Days later, the same object was found on the ground, a dense, silvery orb, scarred yet strangely perfect. It had no visible welds, no joints, no seams that might betray a human hand, and carved faintly along its surface were markings that looked eerily deliberate, symbols that no one could quite decipher. Eyewitnesses said it made no sound when it landed. There was no crater, no burn marks, no shattered metal, just a strange humming that faded as the object cooled. One farmer described it as feeling alive, like it was vibrating faintly when touched. At first, many thought it was a space debris fragment, perhaps a piece of a weather satellite or rocket, but experts quickly noted that it was completely uniform, as though it had been cast in one impossible piece. That's where researcher Jose Luis Velázquez and his team stepped in. According to Jose, who has studied the sphere closely, the object defies easy explanation. "It is a very rare piece," he told reporters. "I've never seen anything like this." When his team performed an X-ray analysis, what they found was even stranger. The orb appeared to be made up of 3 distinct layers of metal, encasing 9 smaller microspheres inside. The structure, he said, was unlike any manufactured material they'd encountered. To some, this discovery felt like vindication, a whisper of proof that something extraordinary might really be out there. But to others, it was another example of how easily mystery can cloud our judgment. Dr. Julia Mossbridge, a physicist from the University of San Diego and co-founder of the Institute for Love and Time, has been following the story carefully. Her reaction was one of fascination, but also caution. "It looks to me like a really cool art project," she told Fox News. "Before you decide something's anomalous or a UFO, bring it to a group like the Galileo Project." The Galileo Project, led by Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb, is an international effort to scientifically examine alleged extraterrestrial artifacts using data, not speculation. Julia's point is simple. The unknown should invite investigation, not panic. Still, she admits that this era of discovery says something deep about where humanity stands today. "We are entering a time when we don't have the control that we thought we had," she said. If an artist created this, maybe that's the point, to remind us how little we truly understand about what's in our skies and our waters. Something is happening that feels bigger than us. Pretty quickly, the internet erupted with theories of its own. Photos of the sphere began circulating on Reddit, X, and UFO forums, and that's when conspiracy theorists began to link the sphere to Bob's reactor, the same perfectly smooth metal sphere he said powered alien craft at Area 51. Even mainstream scientists admitted it was unusual. According to early analyses shared by local media, the sphere seemed to contain alloys not commonly found in standard aerospace materials, including traces of titanium, zirconium, and unidentified isotopic ratios. Then came the strangest part. The sphere wasn't unique. Within weeks, similar metallic orbs were allegedly reported in Venezuela, Mexico, and Costa Rica. It's unverified, but according to these claims, the Mexican Air Force even retrieved one after it allegedly hovered mid-air for several minutes before dropping suddenly. This wasn't entirely new, considering NASA and NORAD have documented orb-like debris falling from orbit before, but never with such consistency or intactness. The Buga sphere, however, stood out for its flawless structure and its timing. Just as new UAP data from the US Department of Defense began acknowledging unidentified metallic anomalous objects, here was one literally in human hands. To some scientists, it was space junk. To others, it was proof that something, or someone, was testing technology beyond our understanding. And for believers in Bob's story, it was something much more than metal. It was vindication, the scientific tests and theories. When the Buga sphere was moved to a secure Colombian Air Force laboratory in Bogotá, scientists expected to find the usual signatures of space debris, oxidized aluminum, burn marks, and a hollow interior. Instead, the tests deepened the mystery. Early spectrometric analysis showed the sphere was composed primarily of titanium and zirconium, but with trace isotopes that didn't match any known industrial alloy. One metallurgist, speaking anonymously to El Tiempo, claimed the internal density readings suggested a complex lattice structure, something not seen in aerospace-grade materials. Simply put, the metal appeared engineered at a microscopic level. The object's surface was even stranger. Under scanning electron microscopes, it showed no tool marks, seams, or microfractures, as if it had been formed through some process other than melting or machining. A few researchers floated the idea of additive manufacturing using atomic layering, a technology far beyond current capabilities for an object this size and uniformity. Then there was the magnetic anomaly. When placed in an isolation chamber, the sphere exhibited weak electromagnetic pulses at irregular intervals, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't constant, but rhythmic enough to be noticed by instruments. Colombian defense officials refused to comment on this, but leaked internal reports suggested the pulses corresponded to subtle changes in ambient temperature, as though the object was reacting to its environment. This data quickly drew the attention of international researchers. A team from NASA's Orbital Debris Program Office requested access to determine if it could be linked to a known re-entry event, a satellite, booster, or fuel tank. However, no matching orbital decay records were found for March 2025. NORAD also confirmed no tracked object fell in that region. That's when the comparisons to Bob's Element 115 reactor reignited online. In his 1989 interviews, Bob described the UFO power source as a small, seamless metallic sphere that emitted rhythmic pulses when activated. The similarity was uncanny. Skeptics dismissed it as a coincidence, but to many, it felt like history looping back and Bob's claims materializing in modern reality. Physicist Dr. Laura Quintana, who has studied exotic materials at the Universidad Nacional de Colombia, proposed that the sphere might contain an unknown stable isotope or function as an energy containment vessel, similar to a Faraday cage. Her cautious statement in an interview summed up the general sentiment. Whatever it is, it was built with knowledge we do not yet possess or no longer remember. Still, not everyone agreed. NASA's spokesperson later clarified that no evidence currently supports extraterrestrial origin. But the agency didn't deny the composition anomalies, merely stating the findings were under review. Whether artifact, debris, or something far stranger, the Buga sphere forced scientists to confront a possibility Lazar voiced decades ago. That technology beyond human origin might already be here, quiet, polished, and waiting to be understood. And now, the only right question to ask is, does this vindicate Bob Lazar? Was Bob right all along? For many who have followed Bob's story since it first broke in the late 1980s, the sight of that perfect metal sphere lying in a Colombian field felt like déjà vu. To them, it wasn't just a piece of debris, like many now think. It was a shape eerily familiar to anyone who had heard Bob speak about alien reactor cores and seamless technology beyond human capability. Even the sphere's outer carvings, faint, almost hieroglyphic markings etched into the metal, evoke the mythic aura that once surrounded Bob's sketches of alien reactors. It's no wonder a part of the UFO community quickly declared it Vindication. But science, as always, demands more than resemblance. So far, there is no confirmed link between the Buga sphere's material composition and any known isotopes of element 115, or even the officially synthesized version, moscovium. No isotopic ratios have been published, no data on its density or atomic structure released. Without these, any claim of extraterrestrial origin remains pure speculation. And Bob's own story, while remarkably consistent over the decades, still lacks verifiable documentation, no employment records, no official project data, no corroboration from other named scientists. So, does the Buga sphere vindicate Bob? Perhaps emotionally, yes. It has breathed new life into a legend long ridiculed and forced scientists to reconsider ideas once dismissed as fantasy. But empirically, the evidence simply isn't there. Not yet. Maybe that's the power of mysteries like this. They remind us that belief often fills the void that proof leaves behind. But what if the sphere actually holds secrets beyond our realm? What does this mean for the future? What real science would require if the Buga sphere truly holds secrets that could change our understanding of physics, proving it would take more than curiosity and headlines? It would require science, slow, exacting, and transparent. The first step would be the chain of custody. Every movement of the sphere, from its recovery in that Colombian field to its current laboratory, must be documented. Without that record, skeptics can rightly question contamination or tampering. Next comes material analysis. Researchers would need to use mass spectrometry and isotopic comparison to determine if its composition matches any known terrestrial alloys. If it doesn't, that's where things become truly interesting. High-resolution spectroscopy could reveal the sphere's atomic arrangement, and density mapping could indicate whether its inner microspheres contain unique elements or structures unseen in human manufacturing. Finally, there's the peer review process. Any extraordinary claim must withstand the scrutiny of independent scientists, with results published and reproducible by others. That's how truth emerges from mystery, not through belief, but through verification. Groups like Harvard's Galileo project, led by astrophysicist Avi Loeb, are calling for precisely this kind of rigor. Loeb's team has already been analyzing fragments from alleged UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, crashes using open scientific methods. Their goal is not to debunk, but to determine what's real and what's not, free from government secrecy or sensational media bias. Skepticism, after all, isn't the enemy of discovery, it's the path toward it. So what does the Buga sphere really mean? It could be a hoax, an experimental device, or something entirely beyond our current understanding. No one knows, not yet. But Bob's name, once buried under decades of controversy, now echoes again in scientific halls and online forums alike. Whether this metal ball is the proof Bob has waited half a lifetime for, or simply another mirage in humanity's long search for meaning, one thing is undeniable. The world still hungers for answers about what lies beyond our skies. Until science confirms it, belief is all we have, and sometimes belief is where discovery begins. What do you think about the sphere? Tell us in the comments. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.